Water is essential. It is used not only for drinking, but also for agriculture, commercial fishing, energy production, manufacturing, transport, and tourism. This intense usage, combined with population growth and greater urbanization in the EU, is putting Europe's freshwater resources under pressure. Droughts, floods, and pollution challenge Europe's water situation, and change is needed. The Cost of Non-Europe report on EU water legislation looks at the implementation of the existing European water legislation, assesses what more can be done by the EU to better protect European water, and estimates the possible economic benefits of these common actions at EU level. The Water Framework Directive is the centerpiece of EU water legislation. The directive entered into force in 2000, replacing much of the older legislation, and introduced new measures such as river basin planning, river basin management, and ambitious long-term targets for water protection. The directive sets October 2015 as the deadline for all European waters to have a good ecological status. However, half of Europe's surface waters are likely to be of poor status by that time. There are two reasons for this failure. First, there is a lack of implementation of the water legislation by member states and by certain sectors. And secondly, there are gaps in the overall legislation that call for the introduction of additional European action. In fact, the European Parliament had already called for improvement in this regard on the 3rd of July 2012, in a resolution initiated by Richard Seeber on the implementation of EU water legislation, ahead of a necessary overall approach to European water challenges. One of the main structural challenges faced by the implementation of the Water Framework Directive, and achieving the good status, is the improvement of hydromorphological status of European waters. The hydromorphological status refers to the structure and evolution of waters. Hydromorphological pressures are caused by dams, dikes, and land use. The pressure on the hydromorphology of European waters could be decreased by natural water retention measures, such as floodplain restoration. Floodplains are natural low-lying grounds adjacent to rivers, which are subject to flooding and, when untouched, help the river naturally discharge excess water when needed. Constructions and flood defense infrastructure around floodplains such as dams and dikes alter the natural river flow and reduce nature's own capacity to absorb excess waters. Moreover, when these constructed areas are flooded, polluted water from sewers or pesticide contaminates fresh underground water, endangering freshwater resources. The current legislation lacks specific requirements for restoring the hydromorphology. The upfront costs of floodplain restoration are high, and payback periods can be as long as 20 years, which is a major challenge given the tight budgetary policies in most member states. Altogether, this has resulted in a limited number of floodplain restoration projects so far. The EU could increase the number of restorations by providing specific requirements for restoring the hydromorphology in its legislation and providing financing tools for national authorities to cover the upfront investment costs. The overall benefit of the restoration of 8.8 million hectares of floodplains in Europe is estimated at €295 billion from 2015 to 2030. Another area for improvement is our daily water consumption. Each European uses on average 100 to 200 litres of tap water a day through the use of dishwashers, washing machines, toilets, showers, and other household appliances. However, the directive regulates energy-related products like dishwashers and washing machines and does not include showers or taps. In this case, there is a need for new, more efficient water-using showerheads and water taps. If introduced, this legislation would lead to a 20% reduction of EU total water use and save €1.2 billion a year. To further reduce our consumption of water, this report also encourages the use of water metering. For instance, the introduction of volumetric charging in agriculture would reduce the volume of water used by 10 to 20%. Quantity of water is not the only concern for the EU, as quality also presents a major environmental problem. The increasing pollution of EU waters is an even bigger sign that member states need to act together through common EU legislation to protect their waters. And here's why. Surface and underground water systems are all interconnected, which means water pollution in one member state often leads to water pollution in others. So to reach a good ecological status for all EU waters, existing laws must be better implemented and additional legislation must be introduced. This way, the EU would save billions of cubic meters of water and save approximately €25.8 billion annually.